The next session is from the DIY Guru, Do It Yourself Guru, Mr. Prashant Shukla. He's from Australia and he's also the community lead in Australia, doing a lot of community activities over there. He's also one of them who started giving out certificates from last couple of weeks for his Power Apps session, and he believes things to be done in a no code way, and hence his sessions are very interesting. Hopefully you love them. Prakash, all the best. On to you.
Thank you, Kuldeep. It was a very good introduction. I'll share my slides first. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this session. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, based on wherever you have joined us from. There are two people in the call with whom I've worked like 10 years ago, so I would like to say thank you to them, Mr. Prakash and Mr. Sajan. Thank you so much for being there. Cool. I'll start off with the topic. As you can see, it's duplicate detection in Canvas apps. Now, we all know that there's no such thing in Canvas app. If we are talking about model-driven apps or Dynamics 365, there are such capabilities. So the session name looks like a hoax or something, but obviously Microsoft has created this platform for us to be able to do anything and solve any problem, and hence we can actually detect, duplicate, and stop them to be entered in the apps. So before we jump into anything else, I know Kuldeep has already introduced me very well, but this is a slide where all my social media channels are there. So Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and my blog. I prefer to do things the no-code way. And what Kuldeep was talking about in terms of my course, it's the Power Stars Academy, where I've provided a course which is Canvas app in an hour. You just need to watch it for 60 minutes and you get a certificate if you clear the quiz. Enough about me. Moving on to the agenda. I was just checking if I'm audible enough because we're collaborating on WhatsApp. So the agenda is first to understand why do you need dedupe or deduplication, and when does it triggers in Canvas apps, and the scenarios where we can use them. So first up is the need. So we don't have the dedupe engine in Canvas apps. You have only got components, properties, and formulas, but there's no such capability or a feature out of the box which is something like you just enable, like we do in Dynamics 365 or CDS advanced settings, right? Users often do not cross-check while they're entering the data, so they don't know whether they are creating a duplicate or not, especially when it's a Canvas app, which is supposed to be really light in terms of data. Users scan business cards multiple times. That is another issue. Like you have scanned a card, but it's still in your pocket and you completely forgot you scanned it again, and it creates another entry for the same lead or contact. And the last one is to keep your data clean. We all need dedupe rules to keep our data clean. With that, we will jump on to triggers. So in our case, in CDS advanced setting, we've got all the 4 triggers which you can see on the screen, but we're not talking about Dynamics 365 or model-driven apps. So only create and update can trigger the duplicate detection rule in Canvas app, not import or delete. On top of that, it's really hard to import data. Like you'll have to do a lot of customization or put an iframe there, which I wouldn't. So that's where the left ones are crossed and the right ones, which is create and update. That's what we can do. So I've got 7 scenarios and we'll move on to them. Let's say let's combine scenario 1 and 2 and then we'll work on it. So scenario 1 is where I'm talking about single field. So let's say I want to detect duplicate when I'm creating a contact and the email ID or email address already exists in my database, right? I want to see a pop-up. So that can be one scenario. and the other one can be multiple fields. I want it on, let's say, email address and mobile number both. So they're the two scenarios. Now what I'll do, I'll go to my Canvas app. Okay, so this screen is for rule number 1, where we are checking it by email only. So I'll just type in my email address here. And as soon as you do that, everything is blocked, including the buttons here, right? Only this is activated, which is a pop-up. So everything on your screen gets blocked because that's an email address which already exists in the system. What we do from here is we either cancel or we ignore and save, just like we see it in Dynamics 365. You see the potential duplicate, but you are still able to save it. So it's that. If I cancel it, what happens is the form gets clear, so I'll have to enter the data again. If I ignore and save, if I've filled all the required fields, so in this case, I haven't filled in last name, so it will not save and throw me an error anyway. Now, that's part 1. Let me just cancel it and go to the next screen, which is email and mobile already exists. So I will start off with, so if I enter this, or I cancel this, and then I go to email address and enter the same email address, I'll again receive that pop-up. Now, I've created, I know everybody would like to know how I've done this because I'm blocking off the screen and the buttons and only the pop-up is accessible. So what I've thought of is that I'll show you how I did it, not in this organized way, but still I've got an app which is blank. So we will look at how I created that screen and the duplicate. So the first thing we do is we'll insert a form here, and let's say we're going to do contacts. So I'll insert a form, and I select a data source as contacts. Now I'm assuming that you know at least the basics of connecting to data, like connecting your Canvas app to data source. I'm assuming that, and that's why I'm doing it directly, that I've inserted a form and then just on my right-hand side, I've selected the data source because I want to create contacts. I'll quickly edit the fields here. I'll just say first name and last name. And I'll forget about arranging the fields. And let's just do it this way and this way. And I will make it, because we are creating it, we are not talking about update here. So we will say it's a new form and not an edit form. Edit form is something here which we use to update a contact record, and it wouldn't work directly. It has to have some context. So this is part 1. And then what I did there is I created a label, which is, let's say this, and I'll expand this, and I emptied its text. Now why I'm creating this, because this label will stop people to click on these fields and further enter data if there is a duplicate, right? So I did that, and on top of that, I did another label wherein I said this is a duplicate. So in that case, I will just change the text, duplicate found, please resolve. Just a moment while I type. Right. Now, when I've done that, I also need 2 buttons. So I went here and added a button here, another one here. So one will say ignore and save, and the other one will say cancel. Now, It's very simple to set the formula. Now you'll see that on select, I've selected this button and on select property says false. We need to change that because what we need to do in this case is reset this form so that the information or the data our users entered is cleared off. So I'll set that to that. And this one, I'll just say submit and create a new contact. So I'll just submit form 1. Now, please don't think that I'm bad at naming things. It is really important that you rename all these components, but because we have less time, so I'm not renaming it. But it's a best practice that you always name it in a way so that you can easily identify what it is. Now, the other important part, as you can see here, is cancel, ignore, and save, where it says duplicate found and the other label. They are listed here. So what I'm going to do is select all of them and I'll group them. So you'll see here, I've got an option to group them. So I'll group it so that I can set its visible property, that's another property, to when I find a duplicate. Otherwise, it's always hidden. So I'm using a trick to stop people to enter duplicate data. So what I'm going to do is, instead of saying it's always visible, what we'll do is say, so this is all Excel-based formulas. You'll easily understand what I'm writing. If it's not blank, so this, then what I'm doing is looking up for my contacts in my CDS. You can also use any other connection, let's say Dynamics 365, or whatever system you've got and the connection is available. Now, what I'm looking for is contacts where the email, so all the fields are listed here. You just have to type the initial and it gives you a hint. Now you can see the structure of the formula on top. It clearly tells you what it is. So you have to look up the source, and source in our case is contacts, and then you have to provide your condition. So I'll say look up emails, and if the email is equal to, now I'll have to check what my email here is. So go to form and email. So the values are stored under this part of this component, which is called data card value in this case. This obviously is dynamic, so every time you add it, this number would change. If you copy it, it always gives you the same number underscore 1, 2, or 3, depending how many times you've copied it. So what I'm going to do is check this data, this email data, which is data card value 2. And the data entered there is actually text, so I have to specify that as well. Now, you need to close the bracket, and so this is specific for visible. Visible is either true or false. Now, we have applied a formula here. We need to tell them a Boolean, which is whether it's visible in this condition or not. So the first thing we enter is we say true. Otherwise, if it's not true, make it false, which means it won't be visible. And then we close the bracket again, which is the structure. And then what I'm doing just for safety, that I'll also say, and the email here is not blank. So do not check it when it's blank. Otherwise, you'll see too many duplicates because it will be comparing blank to blank. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. So I missed a bracket, so I didn't close it. So it should be good now. Okay. I can see that there are errors here. Received 3, expected 1. And I don't know what's the difference because this is the correct formula. Okay, just to not waste everybody's time, I'll go to my app's original form, and here I'm pretty sure it's the same formula. So look at that here. For some reason, that's not working. Maybe it's open in my another laptop or somewhere. So it's the same formula we're using. If the field is not blank, as in emails are not blank in contacts, and it's equal to the email field here, we show the group which we created in the other app just now, which was the two labels and two buttons, and that's how it's working. Now that's scenario one, where we are only doing it for one field. The scenario two is for two field. Now, what did I do to do that? Is just copy this group again and change the field to, instead of email, it will become mobile phone, right? So if I go to that screen here, you will see that I've got two groups, group 3_1 and group 3_2, which are different if you look at their visible property. This one is about mobile phone and the other one is for emails. Now, you have to place it in a way that the users do not see that you have created two groups, but it's actually two groups working on both the fields. Now, if the question is why didn't I use both the fields here itself, like putting in and here, is the reason that we are using it on visible property and it expects one condition here and then true or false. So that's why I haven't done that. It's a simple tip. Okay. And I'm not sure what's gone wrong with building the app together. But
Prashant,
yeah.
I think it's a bracket issue.
Oh, did I miss a bracket?
I think you have put a bracket before. I think the true and false should be out of the bracket.
Yeah, there are.
No, it should be out of the second bracket, I think, compared to your other formula, because if should have a true and false.
I have closed email. Okay. Thank you so much for that.
You can be sure everyone is watching your video.
I was pretty sure I entered it correctly. But anyway, thank you guys. Moving on to the third scenario. So this one I've created for update because when I'm updating a record, again, there can be duplicates. So in this case, what I'm doing is entering an email address. And what I get here, instead of just showing me that it's a duplicate, I also get to see the contact in a gallery. So what I've done is I've filtered this gallery based on my email address. So if we have to do this here, let me just delete some of this just for the sake of it. And what I'll do here is insert a gallery. And that's a contact gallery. And the items of the gallery would be, I'll just filter them with filter contacts, where email is equal to data card value 2. Sorry, dot text. It's added connected to the data. That I definitely think there's something wrong, which is happening with me right now.
Blank. It should be layout with some columns.
Oh, sorry. I'm definitely nervous. I can feel that. Okay, so all I did was insert a gallery and filter it based on whatever email address is entered here. So you can see the duplicate itself. And if you just want to update it, instead of having this button, I added a button, or you can just use this button, which comes by default as well, to update the form. So if I do it there on this form, if I click here, it takes me to the record itself, and I can now update it and I submit it. So instead of having the formula to be, so let me just close it. And if the formula here a select parent. Along with that, I said select the parent and navigate to the edit form. So I had another screen where the edit form is there. So that's my scenario 3, which covers that. Now let me go back to the PowerPoint and see that scenario 3. Okay, scenario 4 was show duplicate but allow save. So if I go back and let's say I'll not enter much data, I'll just say okay. So what it does is it shows that a lead already exists. Now this form is lead form. Again, the same criteria was applied. So the user is now well informed that there's a lead already existing for this particular email address. They shouldn't be saving it, but just in case their business scenario is that you can have 2 leads from the same email address, instead of using an existing contact, they're still creating leads, they can do it this way. So that was non-restrictive scenario where we are still allowing users to save it. Again, the formula for the filter was the same, which we used here on this gallery. Just filter your gallery by the email entered here. Okay. Going back. Okay, now this one I've done in a way where I'm doing cross entity while creation. Now, let's say I'm creating a lead and I'm checking if a contact already exists. So let's go back to the Canvas app, and this is cross entity screen, and I'll just enter an email ID. Now this time, instead of saying leads exist, it shows me contacts. So what I've done, I've used both the data sources. For the form, I've used leads, and for the gallery, I've used contacts. So instead of comparing the email address, which we did earlier, comparing the email address in the leads, we are comparing it in contacts. So if you're familiar with the leads, fields of leads entity in Dynamics 365, it has topic as well. So that's how the form is leads, but the gallery shows you contacts. Okay, so this one is gallery and gallery. So as a user, or let's say as a data administrator, I just want to check on my tablet that which record is a duplicate in the other entity. So I am checking contacts and leads. So let me go to the other screen. So here I've got contacts on the left and leads would be visible on the right. Now, by default, the first record in the gallery is selected, and that's how you see it. So which means for my name, a lead by this name, but with the same email address is already exists. So if I want to update that, if it's incorrect, I can do that. Or if this one is incorrect, I can just update it so that there's less duplication. Now I can search another one. So I just searched this one and I can see Patrick, again, another lead which has got same email address but different people. So I'm comparing a gallery with another gallery. And how I did this one, let's go back and check it here. So what I'm saying is I'm filtering the leads gallery by whatever is selected here. So there is a label in the behind the scenes which is not visible. I think it's this one. No. Yeah, the hidden one. So what the label does is whatever you select in the contacts, it captures the email address of that one. So you can see the text in the label, although it's hidden, is gallery2.selected.email. So whatever I select here, the email gets into my label and that filters out my leads. So that's that. And the visible property is also set in a way so it's not showing you always, only if you select something it's visible. No, I said that wrong. It's always visible because it's getting filtered and the first record is selected by default, so it's always filtered. Okay. Related to this, the next scenario is where I'm doing a cross search in two entities again. So if I search Prashant here, I'm saying something wrong. Let me go back to my scenario. Cross entity check and record search. So I'll just enter an email address here, which is this one. And as soon as I finish the complete email address, it shows me here. So it's on search instead of selection. So why I said that, if I delete this, this is not visible. The other one, because the first one was selected, so it's on the previous screen was on selection. This one is on search. So if I, let's say, search another one, and I see that. So it's only working when the search is complete instead of selection of the record. So that's that. And it was pretty similar how I did that instead of doing the label. So instead of having a hidden label, which was in the previous screen, scenario 6, what I did is use just one search box for both the lists. So both the lists are filtered on this text search, which is here. Both contacts and leads are filtered on that. So there was my way of managing duplicates from end users on a Canvas app. Scenario 7 was the last scenario. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant. There are a couple of questions that needs to be answered. The first one comes from Mayur. And it is, I would like to know how do you block other fields to enter value?
Sorry, we need to mute somebody.
Yeah, guys, please mute yourself when you're not speaking. Prashant, I'll repeat the question from Mayur.
Yes, please.
I would like to know how did you block other fields to enter values?
Okay. So I'll share my screen once more. So what I did, this is from Mayur, right?
That's correct.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So Mayur, what I did, I created a group of labels and buttons. So let me show it to you. On the screen, you can see there's a group. So there are two labels here, two buttons, and third label is for the message. So let me just test it here. So you can see all of the components in my group. And what it does is, so this is the entire thing. Now, I cannot go back there again once this message pops up, right? So the condition where I got stuck with the bracket and the comma thing, that condition makes this group visible only if the email matches my contacts in the database, right? Now, what I've done is I haven't arranged these labels and buttons, etc. So they are on the top of the screen, right? So if they're on the top of screen, so you know how you can say rearrange, reorder here and send to back. So I haven't done that. They're at the front of the screen. So whenever they are visible, it just blocks everything. So this whole thing is a transparent label, which when you're actually using the app and not making the app, you cannot see that there's something like this exists.
Fabulous. Another one is also from Mayur, is telling how to handle on blur event in Power App. Example, if duplicate email entered, we will highlight text box. Then user can re-enter email once he completes typing. On tab key, we want to show default styling.
Oh, I don't know if on tab I can do. I'm guessing on the color coding thing that you can do. The color coding thing I did in one of the last screens where you can see you can make it red to highlight it. Um, I have done it dark gray. I don't know if that was the question.
No, no. My question is, if you entered incorrect email, we will highlight the text box, right?
Hmm.
Then if we click on, if we tap somewhere else on the application, we
Hmm.
want the default styling of the text box, not the highlighted one.
Okay, so I know the first part of it. You'll have to put the condition on your text box based on whatever email. So you'll have to change the property, the fill or the border color, which I think I don't have, let's say here. So you see the properties here. You'll have to change it in the formula bar based on whatever label you're putting in there, and you want to change that. But the second bit, I think it's a bit tricky because once you have changed it, there has to be some sort of trigger to change it back to the normal one after the tab.
Yes.
All right. So if that answered, I guess we have a next question from Dolly Panchal, and she's asking, when I'm putting condition or logic to get items from list, where list contains more than 500 items, I feel some performance issue. Do you also see the same? It'll throw some light on Power Apps limitations, when to use and when not to.
Okay, so Power Apps is a term which is very commonly used, but I think we are misusing it in terms of, are we calling Canvas apps Power Apps or model-driven apps Power Apps? Because both of them come under Power Apps. If you're using model-driven app, I'm sure you're not having any issues. You can have 100,000 records there. But I think you mean Canvas apps. And yes, you will feel issues of loading and things like that. And that's why it is recommended that you make your app lighter, right? So what you do is you can change all that from here. So you see the value 500 in the advanced setting. You can change it to, I have never seen it more than 2000. So it's basically when you're taking the requirements, you have to make sure that you communicate it well, that you'll have to divide, as in your client will have to divide the data in chunks so that it's smaller and the user only get relevant part of it. If you've got 100,000 contacts and or leads and they want to access it on a Canvas app, mobile app, it would be really hard and there would be performance issues. The one way I've showed you in the advanced setting, you can increase the number to up to 2000. But yes, you will always see an alert. In my case, it's 200 contacts, but I never see that alert sign here. If I would have had, let's say, 2000 plus, I would see that sign. So that's a recommendation from the platform itself. It tells you that this might cause performance issues. So you'll have to be very careful when you're taking the requirements. You need to communicate it to the client that this is not your model-driven app or your Dynamics 365. This is a mobile app. It is supposed to be live. Then based on your screens, you divide data. If they need to, so for example, I did a 12 views. So they wanted to see their active invoices, approved invoices, and whatnot invoices, right? So what I did in that case, my first screen was just into the app and then show them all the buttons through which they can go to these invoices. Now I divided their data via views so that when they go to a screen, the data is shorter or less number of records are there. Otherwise, I did not provide them a view or a button called all invoices because then there would be performance issues. So that's my only suggestion, I would say.
Thank you, Prashant. We have a lot of questions, so we need to expedite a little. And then the next one also comes from Dolly. She is asking, can we put duplicate check on two boxes? Let's say phone and email.
Yes, I did show that on my second screen. So the trick I adopted here was I had two groups instead of one. One is working on my mobile phone, the other one was working on email. So you can do that.
Thank you. The next one is from Mr. Naresh, and he's asking, in scenario 7, is it that can be autocomplete and also partial search?
In one
Scenario
moment.
7.
That's
Naresh,
the last
you wanna-
scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get the question?
Yeah. So yes, partial search can work. Instead of saying equal, you'll have to say in. So, but I don't think so that you can enter out of email address, exit out of email address field without providing a complete email address. I'm not sure of that, but you can always have a partial search, which is possible. Instead of saying equal to or exact in, you'll have to say in the formula, and that should work.
All right. The next one also is from Naresh. He's asking, is Power Apps having lazy load functionality while fetching data from entity?
I don't even know what lazy load is. Sorry about that. You might have to elaborate on that.
Naresh, you want to unmute yourself and elaborate on that, or should we proceed ahead? Right, Naresh, you will catch up later.
The lazy load is just the functionality where we are first by default fetching 200 records. Then when we go down to the list, then we again get next 200 records by default. Is that functionality available?
It's I don't think so. I'm 99.99% sure it's not available by default, but there are ways and means. So you can always have a button here to load more at the end of the list, and that's possible. But by default, I have never seen it.
Naresh,
Okay,
can you
okay.
mute yourself?
Yeah.
All right, so thank you. And then next is from Chetan. He's asking, is it feasible to use lookup column in Power Apps because it always gives delegation error sign?
Now, lookup is definitely possible. I've used it. You mean the lookup fields of Dynamics 365?
I guess so. That's what Chetan is meaning. Chetan, if there is
Yeah.
anything else you mean apart from that, please let us know and unmute yourself. All right, I think he means that, and that is possible, Chetan.
Yeah.
That's what Prashant says, and we agree to it. Next is from Lalit Mohan. He's asking how many field I am allowed to create in custom entity. I have business case where I need to build supplier FAQs with question and answers with camera control. So I expect 120 plus fields. Should I still allow to use in single CDS entity?
120 fields on an entity are actually nothing. It's very much possible you can create. I'm guessing you're not talking about Canvas app. You're just talking entity of CDS entity in general. 120 is like everybody uses those much. But if you need to put those 120 on a Canvas app, you will probably have to create, let's say, a 10-page form. So you'll have to have multiple new forms for them to be able to submit it, which 10 forms means 10 screen just for one record you'll have to have. But 120 fields in CDS, it's nothing. It's completely fine and you're good to go.
All right. The next two last questions is first one is from Ayan. Ayan asks, is it possible to call external API from Canvas app? How to do that?
Can you throw some light on that or give me some example?
Ayan, you want to unmute yourself? All right. Till he unmutes, we can move to the next question, which is from Viswanath. When the group or pop-up is visible, does the main screen gets disabled or not? If so, how?
Yeah, so, okay, this question is really popular. Yeah, so I did show that what I've done here is you can see the label. This is a blank transparent label, the one which I'm trying to move my cursor around, and that is on top of the background screen, which is my form. So that disables my form. So if I right now click on this, my form is disabled. I can't do anything. So if you group it right, it would be disabled.
Fabulous. And the last comes from Vikar, and he's telling, can we pull up the data from SharePoint list?
Absolutely. You can pull data from SharePoint. So basically you mean that can we have SharePoint as a data connection? Yes, you can.
Well, there is a lot of greed for more questions. I'm going to put up last question before we actually go
I've got
past.
7 minutes. That's why I ended quick. I've got 7 minutes.
Yes, and this, I love this. I mean, when there are a lot of questions. Naresh is asking, is Power App working in offline model also with local database?
Power Apps works in offline mode. You need to go to docs.microsoft.com and check that feature, like the do's and don'ts about it. You can always store data in collections. When you have somebody ask about the gallery and more than 2,000 records, that's also when you can utilize collections to have them in chunks stored somewhere, so there's not much load on it. So that's how you can do it. I think Naresh also asked one more question, which was like external API or something. I didn't get much about it, but if it was about that, can I go to Google from here if I click on ignore and save, something like that? That's possible. I don't exactly understand what would external API do here.
Yeah, like, excuse me, my name is Suresh. In fact, the question from Naresh is a very valid question. It's part of integration. What he meant should be from, like, let's say, external integration. If I have an external API, will I be able to fetch the data through the external API from the external application?
But that's my question. Why would you fetch it in Canvas app when your data source is somewhere else? Why don't you fetch it there? Because this is more for the front end users. So what is the business case here that you want to fetch it from
But
external?
when we have to build the architecture in CDS layer, right?
Yeah.
CDS, yeah, and so we can have an entity, any virtual entity or any entity, and in that entity would be fetching this web APIs, right? So that would go, that coding will go which place that will go in
It
Power
would
Apps?
go to your CDS part side of it or model-driven side of it, model-driven app side of it, not Canvas app. This is your front-end user. This is supposed to be light. They're supposed to enter less data here. So that's why I'm saying that you can do it, but you do it in the actual data source, or where, let's say, finance and operations are using the actual desktop app or model-driven app there. That's where you do it for that interface.
I got it. Okay, one more question. Actually, if there are too many contacts, lakhs of contacts, let's say, so how would be the performance issue? How will it is quickly? Or if you are searching a contact, will it fetch fast?
There are a lot of factors around that, which I would need to ask you. So, for example, you will have to tell me how many users are accessing contacts and how many users are only accessing their own contacts and the others are not supposed to access anybody else's contact, right? So you'll have to think of those scenarios. And as I said earlier, you'll have to divide your data into chunks so that there's less load on your app, because this is on the go app and it shouldn't be slow. So you'll have to think of use cases or talk to your clients and do the journey mapping that people actually don't need 100,000 contact on the map. This person only accesses their 2,000 contacts, so they need my active contacts view. So that's how you divide it into chunks. And
you mean to say that there's no relation to the core application, let's say CRM, from where I am fetching the data. So core application, core system does not have any impact for the performance, and the performance issue may have an impact only on the Power App side.
Canvas app, not the Power Apps, because Power Apps include model-driven apps. Canvas app, I'm saying.
Yeah, Canvas app. Okay. Thank you, Prashant.
Dolly, I guess that must have answered your question also, but I'm still gonna repeat that question. Dolly says, but I'm in doubt if my list have more than 5,000 items and I separated it in multiple view, but how we can call single view of SP list in Power Apps?
Look, I'm not a SharePoint expert, but I'll show you one thing here that we can do it for D365 or Dynamics 365 or model-driven apps. So I'm pretty sure that Microsoft must have done it for SharePoint, but you'll have to cross-check. I cannot answer for SharePoint list views. If somebody is an expert, they can probably chip in, but I know that we can select views here. So if I click here, you see that I can select a view here, right here. In this case, I have applied a formula. Otherwise, it's visible here itself. You can have active contacts or my contacts or whatever you want to select, and it auto filters it.
Fantastic. Vikar has a question. He's asking, what is the deployment process of this Canvas app?
Oh God, that's a tough one. Look, Vikas, I'll be really honest. I'm the no-code guy, and the deployment is done by my technical team and not me. So I'm not an expert and not the best person to ask that question.
So why don't you do one thing, Prashant, is share your contact details again and let people note down in case they have any further queries, or in case you can get them connected to the technical team for any technical questions and stuff like that. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I have my details on the screen right here. On top of that, I'll suggest you to join the Kaizala group. The link has been shared. Also, join Power Users community if you have very difficult scenario questions as well. So just between Kaizala and Power Users, you'll get a lot of answers. But all my details are here. As soon as you Google DIY D365, you'll get some results.
Okay, well, I can see that your Power App screen is visible at the moment now.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll share my.
Yeah.
What's happening with me?
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay, it's later in the day for you, Prashant.
No, I haven't had no, I'll not say anything.
Yeah. So he's from Australia, guys, and I think it's party time there. So we respect this, Prashant. It's okay. Anyways, here are the details, and I think we got it. Thank you, Prashant. Fantastic session. Guys, stay tuned. We are just having a break of an hour. We get back at 1:30. And this time it's going to be me. It's my session at 1:30 with Scrum Management, PSA, and DevOps as a tool, as how to use it. You will love that session, guys. Talk to you in about an hour now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Prashant, for a wonderful session. So Kuldeep is going to come back. He's our PSA champ. And there's a link, feedback link that we shared. If you feel that this has been really useful to you, it's my request that you spend just 30 seconds after you close this particular call for a break and do share feedback for Prashant as well. It helps us and it motivates us to do further in the coming time. We have had very, very limited feedback on the links so far. So it will be great if you take all the sessions from Dharani in the morning, then we had a session on customer insights from Jiva, then we had Canva apps duplicate detection from Prashant. So it will be great if you can share your feedbacks before you go off or utilize your time in the break. The pending sessions will be shared on the screen. Harshal, you can go ahead and share the screen for whatever is left out for the day. So we are going to go all the way till 9 p.m. IST. There's a long time to go. We'll come back at 1:30. Thank you for your time, and have a good time for whatever time zone you are in. Enjoy your 1 hour of break for your coffee, for your lunch, for your dinner, or for your snacks. Thank you, guys.
Catch up with you guys in an hour. Bye.